Okay.
Good afternoon and welcome to AM News Network presents Summary Judgment. I'm attorney Rachel Baird. I'm joined by my co-host Ed Peruta. We're transmitting live from the American News Media Center here in central Connecticut as we try to do each Saturday at around 2, 3, or 4 o'clock. How are you, Ed?
1, 2, 3, 4, or 4 o'clock.
Well,
But it's been suggested that we find a uniform time that we can do. So I think earlier is not as good. Real late is not as good. So somewhere in the middle, 2 or 3 o'clock, is probably going to be better.
well, when we started the show back in 2014, we did it from like 6 p.m. to 8:30 at night. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, and we did it over at the community center. Now,
Yes.
in Weathersfield, this Monday there's a meeting at the community center, public access, and we're going to
Right.
attend, aren't we?
We are.
Okay. And we may start using their studio to get out more often.
Well, it's going to
correct?
depend on their internet connection. In other words, I still want to go out. In addition to cable, I want to go out over YouTube's. So, yeah.
So I have a couple things to talk about today. We usually talk about the big subjects here at Summary Judgment, don't we? And sometimes we talk about the subjects of things that happen to us too. And I may not characterize those as big, but they happen to us, so they're big to us. But there is a lot that goes on in courts that really never gets much publicity, never sees the light of day. And it's these, I guess what you could call it, the little cases, the motor vehicle accident cases, the damage to an apartment case because somebody's washing machine upstairs was leaking. And the courts here in Connecticut have been doing a pretty good job of doing these trials that don't require a jury. A lot of them you can waive the jury in them, and a lot of people do. And they've been doing these trials remote and churning out the decisions. And I picked out a decision today, Ed, that I thought just might be interesting to people who may not be familiar with the court system, because I have a lot of people come to me and they find it hard to believe that if they file a case, for instance, now in 2021, it may be till 2024 or 2025 till the case is actually heard. It's a long, long process. So I just thought I picked a case at random. It's a recent case. It has to do with workers' compensation. It has to do with what happens when police officers, many times what happens when police officers get hurt on the job and they're covered by workers' compensation. I think a lot of people are unaware that when a police officer is hurt on the job, for example, hurt by you because it's a motor vehicle accident and you hit the police cruiser and it's your fault. Or I had a case where a kid under the age of 16 was involved in a struggle with a police officer, and the police officer broke his foot, and workers' comp covered it. But then workers' comp came after the homeowner's policy of the young man who had engaged in the struggle with the officer. I think a lot of people are unaware that when police officers are hurt, they can come after you and sue you, or workers' comp can come after you and sue you and get their money back, and the officer can also get extra money back for any damages done to them that workers' comp didn't cover. Do you think a lot of people are unaware of that, Ed?
A lot of people are unaware of that.
Yeah, so you have to be careful with a police officer like you are with everybody else, because when something happens, you could be liable, and you could be personally liable, where your insurance company's paying out or you're paying out. So let me tell you a little bit about this case. And it's a short case. It was a motor vehicle accident that happened in February of 2017. The case was just decided on April 16th of 2021. So that would be what? 5 years? We've been having trouble. No.
3, 4 years.
4 years. We've been having trouble with math this week, so.
Big time.
On a lot of things that you'd think we wouldn't have trouble with. So that would be approximately 4 years. So the police officer is lights and siren, but she's got a red light. Excuse me, she's got a green light. She's going through the intersection, and another car comes, T-bones her basically because they run a red light. The police officer gets $39,000 in workers' compensation, and then The workers' compensation and the police officer, both are represented by different attorneys, come after the motor vehicle operator in the other car. Now, there's what's called in state court in Connecticut and a lot of courts throughout the United States an offer of compromise, and it's to encourage settlement. So, partway through the case, the plaintiff can put in a document and say, I would settle for this amount. And in this case, the amount was $85,000. So do the math, 85,000 minus 39. 39 would go to Stratford in this case, the municipality that paid out the workers' comp, and the rest would go to the officer and her attorney and for cost or whatever. So the offer of compromise was $85,000. What are you doing?
What am I doing?
Yeah, what are you doing?
I'm looking for an email that was sent to me by
Uh-huh.
a guy named John Michael Reynolds,
Okay.
and I'm listening
No,
because
that's okay.
I'm ready to comment.
I was just wondering if you were looking for something in particular. So it went to trial, and this is a trial that, let me see, it took place, it must have taken place April 15th, a one-day trial that these people waited 4 years for. And it was before a judge, no jury. There was one witness, Ed. The plaintiff was the witness. Okay, and she testified as to what she was doing when this happened. She testified as to the pain she has in her hip, the recurring pains, and all that kind of stuff. I guess there was some testimony about the vehicles. There were some medical records put into evidence. One day, done. Trial done. And that was April 15th. The judge comes out with a decision on, let me see, April 16th. Well, that is a quick one, isn't it? Am I reading that right? The court held a bench trial on April 15th, 2021, and the decision is April 16th.
Next day.
That is a good one. And the decision is, by the way, judges have 120 days basically to get out a decision. The court found that it should award the plaintiff $39,000 in economic damages because that's what the plaintiff, the police officer, owes to the town for her workers' comp, and $75,000 in compensation for pain, suffering, and impairment damages. So they put in an offer of compromise of $85,000, and the judge ended up awarding $114,000.
All right, now
So what does that mean? From the date that offer of compromise went in to the date of the judgment, I believe that the defendant who did not accept the offer of compromise and conceivably wasted everybody's time by going to a trial that they ultimately lost and lost more than they would have if they just settled, has to pay interest on that amount or something like that.
From when to when?
I know, I'd have to look at the
From the
statute.
offer. From the date of the offer.
From the date of the offer, correct. And then there's post-judgment interest.
Now I have a question.
Yes.
Okay. The first $39,000 awarded to the officer
Yeah.
was to reimburse the town for workman's comp.
Yeah, and we say the town loosely. It's actually the town's workers' comp insurer, right?
Right. So they got their $39,000.
The amount paid by the town of Stratford in workers' comp benefits.
Did the officer get back his premiums for workman's comp?
Is there a premium for workman's comp? I think
somebody-
no. I think employers pay that.
Employers pay
Yeah,
it, but
yeah.
you know, they got $39,000. Did they pay back the town?
Well, the town has to pay the premiums anyway, whether there's an accident or not.
I
So that doesn't really count.
Listen,
But-
I can tell you this, that our judicial system is screwed up.
Well, I put this in. This is a kind of case that doesn't get much publicity. The judge sat there for a day and listened to, well, at least one witness, I guess, looked at the evidence, and the next day had a decision out.
Now,
I don't have a problem with that.
That
seems like somebody's working.
the time he was writing the decision in yesterday's case, he could have put into a case that's 18 months old and further that along. In other words, this case should have gone to the end of the line.
Why?
Not
This is a 3.5-year-old case.
right, and if it was the oldest case in the courthouse, that's fine. Otherwise, think
Close.
of this. All right? And I'll do it this way. I can do it with these two pieces of paper.
Duke.
All
Duke.
You know that in Connecticut they classify cases. There's what's called the complex litigation docket.
Mm-hmm.
That means that it's going to be very complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes to this court. And it's just a regular old complaint and it goes to that court. Okay? Well, I don't know why the state of Connecticut doesn't classify cases and say this is a 2-week case. From the day it's filed in the clerk's office, you're going to be prepared to receive a decision within 2 weeks. You're going to come in, you're going to put your case on, I'm going to make
that
a
just
decision.
makes no sense.
Okay. You can say it makes no difference.
No, it makes no
Okay?
sense.
You can say it makes no sense. But I will tell you this. There are delays caused by the courts. There are delays caused by attorneys. There are delays caused by plaintiffs. Okay? And I don't think there should be any delays.
But why, number one, there's what's called discovery. When you file
Got
a
it.
case, you have a right to find out the facts.
Right.
The other side has a right to find out the facts.
Right.
Through depositions, interrogatories, requests for documents, admissions, inspection of evidence. You know, there
Time to consult with an expert witness and all kinds of
And
shit.
what this is supposed to do is lead to settlement. Because once everybody gets the facts, then it's like, oh, well, maybe the case isn't worth as much as we thought it was, or maybe we should pay out because it looks like it's worth more than we thought it was.
You know-
and it leads to settlement.
You know, everybody, there's a lot of people that have a lot of different opinions of me. And I always thought I was a badass motherfucker. In other words, you fuck with me, I fuck back with you, right? Well, this is what the system can do to somebody. I had a workman's comp injury. And there are certain time frames that go on. In other words, there's a thing called maximum medical improvement, MMI. In other words, some doctor says, we've done all we can for you, we can do no more. When I'm 71, it ended up me getting a left knee. But the situation was I reached MMI. And then the insurance company, which at the time was Minuteman Insurance, Boris Blaskerka was the claims agent, did not send me my check. I had an award for X amount of weeks of permanent disability, and he was supposed to send me a check. No check. Now, I'm the kind of guy that if I say to Rachel, I'm sorry, I know I owe you that $1,000, but I've got a check coming in from Workman's Comp, and you're the first person I'm going to walk up to and give the check to. I said, but, you know, and then weeks go by, months go by, and I start asking questions, and I can't figure it out. So they were in Hamden, Connecticut. Now, for me, that's a 45-minute ride in a car. And I drove down, and I was demanding my check, me personally. Give me my check. Give me my check. I need my check. I owe bills. They're gonna take my car. They're gonna take my house. All kinds of shit was going on. And so they said, well, okay, if you'll take this amount rather than that amount,
Right.
we'll write you the check today. Or in some cases, they say, I'm only authorized up to $10,000, but I can write you a $10,000 check for your fucked up shoulder. But if you want more, it's going to take longer. Okay. I took that and signed the agreement, and I had to get the check at a hearing with the Workmen's Compensation Commissioner, which was going to be like 2 days later. I walked in, and fortunately, my best friend's father was the head workman's comp attorney for Liberty Mutual out of East Hartford, Connecticut. And when he found out what I did, he was extremely upset. And he said, Eddie, why did you ever do that? And I started crying, saying, I owe people money. I've never owed anybody any money. I pay my bills. I fulfill my obligations. And he said, I'm going to take care of this. So we walked into, and he was brand new. Bidet was his name. Commissioner Bidet. Not Bidet, but something like No.
I think you're thinking of something else.
I can't remember his name, but he was brand new. It was like his second day on the job. But he knew George Downing, my friend's father. And I walked in, we sat down. My lawyer just sat in the back. He'd already talked to the judge. And he sat down in the back and he said, Mr. Peruta, we're going to be settling today. Are you aware of that? I said, yes, sir. And he said, Mr. Bliskirka, do you have the agreement that Mr. Peruta signed? He said, yes, sir. He said, may I see it? He looked at it. And he says, now, Mr. Peruta, this says you're going to get, say, $5,000. Back then it was money. He said, you're going to get $5,000. I said, yes, sir. He said, is that the amount you thought you were going to get? I said, no, I thought I was going to get like $20,000. I said, but that it kept happening. Finally, he told me that if I signed, I could get 5. And so I signed, and I'm here to get my 5. And he says, really? He says, Mr. Bliskirka, is that the story? He says, well, let me ask you a question. You were supposed to give him this check within 30 days. And that was in August. It's now January 15th of the next year. Why didn't you give it to him in the fall? Well, people were taking vacations. And why didn't you give it to him in November? Well, people took off for Thanksgiving. And why didn't you give it to him in December? He said, well, people took off for Christmas. And why didn't you New Year's, Christmas, holidays, everything else? He said, really? He said, to write a check and get a signature? So he takes the agreement that I signed, and in front of Boris Bliskirka, he tears it in half, tears it in quarters. He puts it on the desk. He says, take out your checkbook. And he said, write Mr. Peruta a check for like $20,000.
So the commissioner said that, or
Commissioner
the Liberty
told
Mutual?
The insurance company, get your checkbook out, and told him to write me a check for $20,000. Okay? And he said to him, he said, if you ever come in front of me again. Oh no, Duke's doing it. I'm getting gas attacked by a dog. But if you do this again, it's going to cost you a lot more money. And I remember being reduced to tears because I couldn't pay my bills.
Well, your brother went through a similar situation with me, and he was just ready to throw in the towel. He was so frustrated.
Well, you don't understand. I mean, my brother Rick came that close to death, okay? And lawyers were lying to him. You know, Congresswoman Barbara Kennelly has a son named John Kennelly. He worked at Halloran and Sage. And Mike Gustafson was his lawyer, but he got appointed to the U.S. Attorney's Office, so they gave it over to John Kennelly. And John Kennelly kept giving my brother Rick excuses. And so finally, my brother and I went over to the Social Security office, and we said, yeah, we'd like to check on what's going on with the claim by John Peruta, or Rick Peruta. And they said, no, nothing. And I said, well, no, nothing's been filed. No, there's no activity. There hasn't been activity and everything. So then we went over to Halloran and Sage, and we were in the room with John Kennelly, and we said,
"There's nothing like going in person, right?"
And this is where we met Mr. Slater, who was a partner, and I said,
"Well, he still is. I would assume."
I know. So we sat there, and we started asking questions. Well, John, how's the case coming? He says, oh, they've got everything they need. We're just waiting on them to make the decision. We've submitted all the... Blah, 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 blah. My fucking brother got up and was climbing over his desk. You motherfucking liar. You lying piece of shit. Was going over. Finally, my brother got up.
Why? I missed that part. It's because you had gone and found out what happened from workers' comp?
We had just come from Social Security.
Got it.
Not workman's comp, or Social Security, disability. We had just come from that office.
Oh, this was for Social Security disability.
went over to John Kennelly, and he was telling us everything he had done, everything he was doing, what was going on, what was going to happen, everything. And Rick said, "You lying motherfucker, we just came from Social Security. They don't even know who the fuck you are." Okay? And I tell you, my brother's a big guy, and he was sick and hurting and everything else. He got up out of the chair and started going over the desk. I had to grab him and pull him back. And now the people from Holleran and Sage are starting to come around to the office. My brother Rick gets up, he walks out of the office, he goes down the elevator, he starts walking home. He's not even waiting for me. He's done. He says, "I'm done. I don't want Social Security. I don't want nothing to do with this. I'm all done with this shit." And so when I left the office, and I had some words with John Kennelly too, and I went home and I called Michael Gustafson, who was appointed as a U.S. attorney and is now awaiting to be sworn in as a U.S. federal judge in Connecticut. And I have all the respect in the world. So I called up Mike and I told him what happened. He was absolutely shocked, but he was not surprised at what Kennelly had done. So there must be a history or something. And the next thing I know, there's a meeting at Holleran and Sage. The big guys are there, and Ken Slater's there, okay? And they did more than apologize to my brother. He got his Social Security, and Kennelly was out on the fucking street. They fired him. Or I don't know what they do with lawyers to preserve their fucking reputation, but he was no longer at Holleran and Sage because of that. And they were always appreciative of the fact that we didn't go after Holleran and Sage and Kennelly for the fucking malpractice that they had played on my brother Rick. So there's lawyers, there's claimants, there's plaintiffs, there's defendants, there's judges, there's prosecutors. It's bullshit.
Well, you know, I like I said last week when we were talking with JC, it's I don't think you can really say everything is bullshit. There are a lot of people who work hard and try hard, and I think it's just too easy to take that point of view. And number one, I don't even think you have that point of view. I think you're just saying it out of frustration.
Okay, I happen to know
You've run
that
into
there are
good
some
people.
very honorable judges. Okay, Judge Underhill, I have a lot of respect for.
Until you've met somebody, until you've met somebody or had contact or dealings with them, how can you just, make a blanket statement like that? Isn't that wrong?
Well, maybe I should put it this way. I'm pissed that the peers, these lawyers and judges' peers, the other judges, the other attorneys, the other police officers who know that this shit is going on, don't fucking stand up and say, "You need to be out of here." Or they all go to the boss and say, "He needs to be out of here because he's given us a bad name."
Well, isn't that true in every profession, though?
But it doesn't happen.
What do you mean?
It doesn't happen.
What doesn't
Bad
happen?
lawyers tend to stick around.
And what bad doctors do, too.
Yeah, bad doctors did too.
Not
Listen,
that's not good either.
I'm saying it's there should be some way for human beings.
But in every this is we need to get off this subject quickly because it's really, I mean,
Where can
it's
you
like
go with
it's like saying there should, yeah, where do you go with it? Oh, there shouldn't be hunger. It's terrible that there's hunger. Okay, I don't know what to say about that. But in each profession, everybody is not going to be of equal talent and ability. Okay, you're going to have the people at the top, you're going to have the people at the bottom, and you're going to have the people in the middle. Okay?
Yep. Just hold on. Don't say anything yet, JC.
Yeah, that's fine.
But let me see if I can tell everybody something. If you go to Google and you Google Cetran, Cetran, Wethersfield, Just Cause, okay? There was a hearing that the video is 6 hours plus long. Go to the end, go to the middle, go to the beginning, and you will see a dog and pony show. Now, I need to say this to the world because probably starting sometime in the very near future, I don't know whether you're going or I'm going alone, but I'm going to be over at the Weathersfield Community Center, and I'm going to be addressing little problems for little people that are wait a minute. A big problem to a little person is a wait a minute. A big problem to a little person is a little problem to a big person. In other words,
I like that.
a millionaire loses
Okay.
a rich person loses $100,000 and says, fuck it, and walks away. It doesn't hurt him at all. His house on the beach in Florida gets wiped out by a hurricane. Doesn't hurt him at all. He just builds another one. He's a billionaire. But a family making minimum wage with two people working in the house, two shifts, two jobs each, okay, loses a TV set. And they don't have enough money to buy another one. So a big problem to a small person is a little problem to a big person.
But there are some problems that affect everybody the same.
Absolutely. And all I want to say is, if you know, because I have conversations about this all during the week. I am told to shut up. Because I verbalize when I read something or see something on TV, I verbalize it.
You know, I don't think I tell you to shut up that much, Ed.
I'm not talking about you.
You're exaggerating.
I'm not talking about you.
I do tell you, though, sometimes.
I'm not talking about you.
I think everybody tells you that sometimes.
It is very difficult to be around people who have a different slant, whether it's conservative or liberal or whatever, and they make decisions and they make statements and they don't have a clue.
But we all feel that way about other people, and we all feel like we know everything and other people don't know anything.
Yeah, okay, JC's on the line someplace, so watch this.
Yeah.
JC will call me and he will say something. And I will say to JC, where did you get this information? And you have to check, double check, and triple check where the information comes from. But right now, let's talk to JC. He's on line one.
Yeah, he was on the phone, but maybe he's on line one. Let's see how this goes.
Because the phones are working. JC, you there? JC.
Hey, buddy.
Okay,
nice.
we got the phone working. We plugged it in.
It only took 3 weeks.
You want me to tell you what else sticks around? Bad district attorneys, bad judges, bad cops, bad government people. Most of the people that work in government couldn't even really work in the real world because of their incompetence of one way, shape, form, or another. You know, so we the people are stuck being abused by it.
Absolutely.
And no bigger push of knowing bad government runs than just watching what's gone on with DACA. DACA cost us $1 billion. Obama knew when he signed the executive order that it was bad, that he couldn't do it. But it cost us $1 billion in 11 years in court.
A federal appellate court has just ruled that DACA is illegal.
Yeah, I was going to ask JC about that, but that's a district court, right?
It's an appellate court.
It's an appellate court.
An
Okay.
appellate court. I can't remember which
something.
one. I think it was an appellate court ruled.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and here's our problem. The real problem is that there's no way to ever hold government accountable. There's no way to get rid of the bad apples. I mean, look at what they did with Thomas Seaver. They promoted him to lieutenant.
Yeah.
Well, you got to understand, JC, people on the other side of the camera that are listening to you don't know who Thomas Seaver is. Now, I do because he's a member of the San Diego County Sheriff's Department, and you've got a lot of history with him. But you're right, bad cops get promoted.
They gave that man qualified immunity, and he was mentioned in 3 different situations in our lawsuit. How does a man who's sitting in a court of law saying, I'm the training deputy, qualify for qualified immunity on 3 different occasions when it's a crime he's committing? That's our problem with our society. our government, when it started, when all this started, our guns were to protect us from our government. We no longer have our guns, but the government, which was supposed to be unarmed, has guns.
Well,
Okay.
what I've always said, JC, is the government is up-arming their law enforcement while disarming their citizens. And that creates
and not
an
only is it
imbalance.
disarming them,
That creates an imbalance in society. When you give all of the power to law enforcement and you take away any way of defending yourself, or like, what if the people, April 19th, 1775, a bunch of colonialists stood on the green in Lexington to face off against a company or whatever of redcoat regular army soldiers with guns. Would they have been able to stand there if they didn't have any guns? What would they have
Right.
done? The British wouldn't even
Right.
had to fire a shot. They would have just fucking bayoneted them to death.
But listen, it's not just unarming us on our First Amendment, on our Second Amendment. They unarmed us on our First Amendment.
Oh,
Look what they've done
absolutely.
with-
There is a
Unarmed
case.
us there.
There is a case somewhere.
unarmed us.
There is a case or an issue somewhere right now, as we speak, where the court is trying to determine whether or not to permit the release of body camera footage. In other
Yeah.
words, we fought to have officers wear body cameras. And now here's what they're saying, and this is the loopholes they're looking for. Well, you know, when the officer's wearing his body camera, there's other people in the picture. There's people that are standing in the background that are innocent bystanders. There may be something else in the picture. Or when they're working at the back end of an ambulance, they may be watching the person get treated in the ambulance. You know, they're coming up with all of these reasons why they don't want body cameras or the footage to be released.
Right.
They
Because it holds them accountable.
see if this.
Let me tell you what else. What else they're attacked? Okay, not only have they attacked the Second Amendment, not only have they unarmed our First Amendment, but what about our Fourth Amendment? Okay, until we the people make a stand and really mean it, we've got nothing but problems. Now take a look at what's going on with this immigration crisis. People from Central America can just walk across here, they get all this entitlement, they can have whatever they want. People from Cuba can't do it, though. You know why they can't do it? Because they vote Republican. So
True.
Biden's telling them, don't you come here. And that's a real deal. You look at the way they voted in Miami, they went, you know, the Cuban community, most of them voted Republican. And that's the last thing Biden wants. So he's like, don't you dick come here. You're not allowed here. So what are we finding Cubans right now doing? We're finding Cubans coming across the border in Texas.
Well,
Because when they come across the border in Texas, they're guaranteed to stay here. You know? But what a difference. You know? Somehow, the American people have got to finally make a stand and mean it. Somehow, we've got to take these judges that when they retire and they tell people like you and me quietly, well, we have to rule for the court, the government, or the government's going to attack us. The government's going to come after my kids if we don't find a way to rule for the government. I've had 3 even judges telling me this stuff. This type of stuff has got to stop. And somehow, we, the people, have got to band together as united. Get away from this divided smoke that they keep doing and hold them accountable. So how do we do it?
when I was riding in my car last night, or the night before, I listened to talk radio. And I tend to talk, and I'll listen to liberal or conservative. It doesn't matter to me, because if I'm listening to the liberal side, I get their way of thinking, okay, their mindset.
Right.
Now, I don't know how it happened, but somehow I think I'm getting my wife's text messages from there's a name for it, group that's raising money to fight the Republicans in 2022, and and I read what they say. I'm not going to call up and say unsubscribe me. I like reading it, okay, because it puts me inside of their PR campaign. All right.
Right.
Now, what I'm trying to say is this: our government got the scare of its life on January 6th. Our country got the scare of their life, okay? It was up here, Jay, Master Control. That squeak was up here. There was a squeak that you were listening for. Yeah, it came from up here. She moved the laptop.
Oh, okay.
What I'm trying to say is, they are deathly afraid that that's going to happen again, and possibly on a larger scale. All you have to do.
January 6th was not an attack. It was people watching, people letting you know we're there. There were no guns picked up on these people. They arrested. There was nobody being. The people being killed were being killed.
Why weren't
unnamed government people?
Why weren't the people who conducted the illegal sit down on the House of Representatives floor arrested? Why are you now arresting people who were involved in January 6th, but you didn't arrest anyone who was involved in the sit down in the House chamber?
Right.
Why?
And these people that stormed that building on January 6th might have just been going in there to sit down and peacefully assemble.
They were fighting for front row seats.
But they got shot instead. And this is the other issue. Again, let's see. Ruby Ridge, they got to keep their mouths shut. Although we know Bill Gore gave the order to shoot that innocent woman holding a baby, he got to keep his mouth shut and got to keep his job. Let's go to the Bundy thing with Laveau. No federal agents named there. So why all of a sudden is our government allowed to hide the names of its murderers from us?
Well, I
Why
will.
are we not allowed to know who the murderers are in their crowd? Why are we not allowed to ask for them to be held accountable?
It's my understanding.
Why are we not allowed to do anything?
It's my understanding that in the next session of the Supreme Court, which I believe starts in September, is going to be, because they voted to take it up, is the New York concealed weapons statute. They're gonna pick it up, and they're gonna be talking about people's rights to carry firearms. Now, how are they gonna?
How many people been jailed?
And this time, because of what happened the last two times, there's going to be people on the Supreme Court who are going to look at every single word and not leave any loopholes. That's my opinion. Is if you're going to write a Supreme Court decision, you have to use words that are airtight, that are done with Gorilla Glue, that are put together with
Since
Gorilla.
when?
Well, no, I'm just saying, when Scalia said not all firearms are going to be legal, okay?
Yep.
Okay? He left it so wide open that they'll take a fucking pea shooter and consider it a firearm, and then you go to court and the judge goes, yeah, well, the officer didn't know any better, okay?
Right.
So whatever's going to happen has to happen rock solid on the nose. And I'll tell you, I don't care if the Supreme Court in its next term shoots down or weakens the wording or the meaning of the Second Amendment. I don't care, because this is what's going to happen. This country is going to change. This country is going to change. And last night they were talking about it. Venezuela. They're fighting like crazy in Venezuela. Miramar, where that woman was the president, now the military took over. Cuba,
the military
Cuba,
taking over?
in Cuba.
Just a little off topic, but when that
Let's talk about the military
No,
taking
go
over.
ahead.
No,
No.
wait, whoa. Rachel's been sitting very quietly.
No,
for a
no,
while.
'cause I'm
I
lo-
want we're not hanging up on you, buddy. Go ahead, Rachel.
No, I just a little off topic, but when that whole military coup started in, and I don't know how to pronounce it.
It's
It used to be Burma, right? But now it's MYA, whatever.
It's over near Cambodia.
Right. There was a woman in an island, and when I mean an island, a grass island in the middle of two roadways, and she was doing morning exercises. Yeah, a very, very, very attractive, in shape woman doing her morning exercises, and she had the camera this way, and she was doing the exercises this way.
And the coup was taking
and you
place.
could see the coup right behind
Yes.
her. It's just awesome.
All of the military vehicles going on to take
and
over
she's
again.
just exercising.
And she just. But I think that what I'm trying to say is this, is that we have had a good run in this country for several years. We've had a lot of. Say again. We've had a lot. No, JC. We haven't fallen apart into unless the Civil War, okay, from 1865 to now, there hasn't been a lot of turmoil, okay? There has, but there hasn't. It's kind of been under control. Now, I probably wouldn't say that if I was black or an American Indian or Hispanic, but I'm saying...
Wait a minute, we're Americans. We're all Americans. We're not black Americans. We're Americans. We're not Native Americans. We're Americans.
You can't say that. You can't say that to a black person.
Well, and I don't understand. You start out with, the government, people that work for the government ain't worth nothing, and blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden, well, we're all Americans. You're judging some people as well, and kind of saying they're separated out, and we all, different ethnicities definitely bring a different history with them to the present day, and you can't ignore that. You can't ignore history. You can't ignore where people
You're right.
have come from.
You know what's a part of our history now? Is that our Joint Chief of Staff was working against our president. That our Joint Chief of Staff was taking orders from Nancy Pelosi and not our president. That our Joint Chief of Staff was technically taking part of a coup. Wiley was participating in a coup to overthrow our duly elected president. You can't speak of a more treacherous situation than our generals deciding we don't give a shit what the elected people have to say. And that's what they did there. Look what they did with Mr. Hunter Biden. They hid everything just to hope it could go away. They wouldn't allow anybody to talk about it. They stopped the investigation because they didn't want it to interfere with our elections. Really?
Okay, let me give you a couple of examples.
We got another caller waiting too.
And I'll go into it right after I say this.
Okay. No? Oh,
Okay.
Okay, we reserved the
All right.
time. Go ahead.
Here's what I look at. It is very obvious that there could be valid allegations against Governor Cuomo of New York. He's still the governor.
Very good.
He's still the governor. There are, I believe, valid, documented allegations of racism on the part of the female mayor of Chicago who only wanted to permit minority reporters at her news conferences. She's still the mayor.
I know.
There's these politicians, Newsom out in California. The same thing. These people that fucking lie to our face, and important lies, not just minimal lies. Okay, they go like this? Well, I'm not resigning. Whatever happened? Whatever happened? Why isn't Schumann, what's his name, the mayor, Cuomo, treated like Weinstein? Why is Weinstein where he is and Cuomo's where he is? Why? Why can a mayor of a city now? You wake up and they said they had 10 fatalities in the day in Chicago, but you know who's beating Chicago? Rochester, New York, in the number of fatalities. Now, I can tell you this: even if I was a bad guy, I'd probably carry a firearm, because I've said it and said it and said it again. We have a situation where armed human beings are shooting unarmed human beings. They don't fight back. Every once in a while, we'll get the story, JC, about a homeowner who shoots the intruder, or the guy in the church, who's doing like collecting the money, and the usher sees the guy getting ready and he pops him. Okay, but the society doesn't understand it until it comes to your door. And once it comes to your door, we haven't had a lot of them lately, but I know that I can ask this one question. Rachel, about how many people do you think came to us initially prior to the incident? They supported law enforcement. They thought it was the greatest thing in the world. And after they got thrown into the ringer, they are dead set against law enforcement. They have no faith in the system, and they think there's just nothing but a bunch of thugs and criminals as police officers.
Yeah, I mean, that happens, definitely.
They get away with that. They get away with that because we don't hold judges accountable.
Well,
I think it's a problem where anybody sets people on a pedestal. If from when you're a youth you learn that people are human, and just because somebody wears a uniform or has a degree or holds a position, it's the person we're talking about. That's why I have a problem with saying, oh, everybody that does this is just bad. It's the person that we're talking about. But I think in our society, because we want people to conform and act a certain way, we're taught in school, at least we used to be, and maybe not in all areas, that law officers are good. They're there to help you. So I think that builds something up in people's minds that when they're disappointed, when they see it's not really true, it's almost like the backlash is all the way the other way. They go from one extreme to the other extreme, where things should be in the middle. You judge a person by who they are, not by what they do, right? What role they have in society.
When I was a child,
I kind of agree with that, but here's the other thing we run into. Any place our government allows anybody any power over any citizen, abuse comes in.
Not always, but go ahead.
Airlines are prime examples of that. Because people just walk away with their power, knowing that they're not going to be held accountable. As long as you're not being held accountable, you can do whatever you want. Our cops aren't held accountable. Our elected officials aren't held accountable. Let's see, who else ain't held accountable? Anybody who works at City Hall, accountability is missing in this country. And you brought up Newsom. We got a letter from Newsom floating around in our lawsuit. Anybody know where that thing is? I'd like to have a recent copy of that, if we can get our hands on that.
Yeah.
The one he wrote SCPD concerning our press credentials because he didn't like the questions I was asking him.
Yeah, that's buried somewhere. We could find it if. Yeah.
Now's a good time for that to come out and start making rounds in the public. Here, this is what's really governing California when you go to that election box in September.
JC, when I was...
Ladies and gentlemen, you guys have a nice day. I'm going to watch the rest of the show on a big screen TV that's as big as me in my couch.
I'll talk to you, brother. I'll talk to you.
You guys.
Adios.
Thanks for calling, JC.
And I got to figure out how to hang this phone up. Well, I don't know. Good. But when I was a kid, I grew up watching Defense Department films that I believe were created to raise money to support World War II. They were all heroic, fluff. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I grew up with that in my head. Now, there's a building in 2 towns over. It's called the Newington VA Hospital, and it had a big white cupola dome on the top. And I will go like this. And I will go like this. I thought there were heroes that lived in that house. I mean, I may have been 8, 9, 10 years old.
Joe Cool.
Oh!
I think it's Joe Cool. His first name's Joe.
Oh, no, it might be Joe from
Oh, hold on.
Texas.
We're going to figure this out.
There's 2 of them.
Hello? Who do we have here? Do we have anybody?
Hey, Joe, you still here?
All right.
Can you hear me? Hey, Joe. Okay, all right.
What line is he on?
Line 1.
Yep, there's only one. Let's see if it works.
Joe, can you hear us? Can you?
Oh, we thought we had the phone.
Joe, can you hear us? Hello?
Maybe you pick it up.
Joe, can you hear us? Okay, I'm getting something's going on here. You know something?
Give him Ed's cell number.
Joe.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
We apologize. We apologize. Yeah. Go ahead.
How you been doing?
Well, I'm dead. Well, I woke up alive again, and I'm not a ghost.
There you go. Good. Good for you. Good for all of us.
Well, you've got the
So
last.
I'm gonna give you a heads up.
You've got the
The
last
day I
8.
wake up and I become a ghost,
Just
the only language I know is boo.
you're the last 8 minutes of the show. Go ahead. It's yours.
All right, so I enjoyed the talk that between the other gentlemen and y'all, but I just want to still bring up this one attention that everybody needs to recognize and kind of stick in their head. The Constitution for the United States is for the government. Our Declaration of Independence is for the people, individual rights. The Constitution is a stop sign not to enter our individual rights unless we commit harm to another. That inside the Fourth Amendment. You got to have some type of proper cause to enter, let's just say for argument's sake, enter my jurisdiction.
So what you're basically saying is the Constitution and the Bill of Rights tell the government what they can't do, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's go with the Second Amendment we talked about before, right?
right.
Well, I have inalienable rights to be able to protect myself by any means necessary.
I agree with
The government
that.
does not give me that permission, right?
I agree.
So that's the reason why the Second Amendment says not to refrain. It's telling the government you cannot enter unless you have just cause to take them guns away from me.
That's the Fourth
So
Amendment.
it's a stop sign. Say what?
That's the Fourth Amendment. The
Yeah.
Second
Well,
Amendment. Second Amendment
yeah.
says
The Fourth-
we have the right to keep them and we have the right to carry them.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. But that tells the government, hey, look, you cannot enter there just to go in there and be able to put all these rules and regulations on them free people. Unless you have just cause, which means you probably have to go to court and this and found guilty and go to prison and all this kind of stuff. However, if I have not committed harm to no one, then that is my inalienable right to be able to protect myself without government intrusion.
yes.
Now, the 14th Amendment kind of flipped that on us, but that's still, 1 through 10 is still the main Constitution that we all need to kind of stick to.
Hold on for 1 second. Correct me if I'm wrong. The 14th Amendment said that the U.S. Constitution applies to the states also.
Well, the people in the states.
The people in the states.
Right.
We're covered
The states.
under the U.S. Constitution through the 14th Amendment. Okay.
Hey, Joe, how do you feel about this? You know, the inalienable right to protect yourself, where in the United States, it's federal law where if you're a felon, and let's admit there are a lot of different kinds of felons. There are felons who murder people,
Violent and non-violent felons.
and there are felons who don't pay their taxes, and there are felons who, when they fall on hard times, they collect unemployment insurance even though they're working under the table. And then there's felons who rob people, and there's felons who sexually assault people, and there's felons like Martha Stewart, who under investigation they make a false statement to the federal government. You know, they give up basically their inalienable right to protect themselves because they cannot possess firearms. Do you think that's right?
Well, and I think we talked about this in the previous, right? There had to be some type of agreement of volunteering and surrendering of rights.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go with argument's sake, probation, okay? Well, if you agree to the terms of the probation and all that, I don't know about every state, but my state specifically says if you agree to these terms, you give up all your constitutional rights.
Well, how
Okay.
about if you go to trial and you're convicted? You certainly didn't plead guilty. You've been convicted, though.
Well, let me ask both of you a question. I understand convicted felons lose some of their rights, if not all of their constitutional rights.
Well, not all of them, no.
But what I'm saying is why can't you have a time specific, like a sentence? You're sentenced to probation for 10 years. And if you don't have anything in 10 years, everything that was taken away for a felony conviction is automatically
well,
restored.
I mean, we do have that. We have pardons.
We have pardons, but
Right.
you have to ask and apply for and make a pitch to receive a unanimous decision or whatever to get it. What I'm saying is, if I get arrested today on a felony and I lose my right to vote or carry firearms, and for the next 10 years of my life, I have no contact or negative communication with law enforcement, the judicial system, the criminal system, anything. 10 years in one day, it's gone.
See, I think it's more of an individual decision than that. If you've killed 5 people,
That's different.
that's different.
There's certain things that don't apply. But what I'm saying is, our system, and JC said it right. Why are we letting all of these people cross the Mexican border and we won't bring all of these people from Cuba to the United States? Why? Why?
Well, I had to agree with the wife part on that. But to get back to that last question, okay, so as you well know, that I'm more on the Constitution side. So if they're allowed to infringe on your Constitution, or if they're allowed to enter your jurisdiction anytime they want, well, we're going to go with this. If I was convicted for murder and the judge sentenced me 20 years, which is not just, but that's what he did, okay? Now I am considered paid back on society and would be able to go ahead and bear arms because now it's a new beginning. Now there's going to be a hangover pass from all the people, not from the government. The government is not involved in this. We keep giving government too much power. It's for the people to watch out for this individual or for me, right? So once you pay back according to the judge, then debt is paid.
Joe?
And a new life begins.
Joe?
Yep.
We have to end the show, but please stay on the line even when the show goes dead. Stay on the line, please. I want to talk to you. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we're going to be cutting
Yes, sir.
off. We're going to be cutting off and taking off, and stay on because I want to talk to you.
Give me a minute to log me out, so just talk for a little while more.
Okay. Well, so we're not going on to. All right. What I'm going to do, Joe, is I'm going to give you my personal number so that when you need to get into the show, you can call my number and give us a heads up that you're going to be calling in. And that will Because I like hearing from Joe. I mean, I like hearing from anybody, but Joe has so much good stuff to say that I would really like to listen to him. And I've even got a little trick up my sleeve for him. So we're going to end the show and stay on the line, okay?
Bye, everybody. Have a